بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم افتح بخير واختم بخير واجعل عاقبة أمرنا رشدا. We start off by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending our peace and blessings upon our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we always, in the start of every class or every khatira or every majlis of ilm, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with beneficial knowledge and hikmah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for beneficial knowledge and wisdom. And beneficial knowledge, as we mention all the time, is that knowledge that is acted upon and implemented. Ilmun nafi' is knowledge that increases you in God consciousness and taqwa. It's knowledge that brings you closer to Allah and does not move you far away from Allah. It's knowledge that's acted upon and implemented. So we always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before starting anything to bless us with beneficial knowledge and hikmah. وَمَنْ يُؤْتِ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Baqarah, يُؤْتِ الْحِكْمَةَ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. And He bestows wisdom upon whoever He wills, and whomsoever He bestows with wisdom has been gifted an abundant good. Yani, if you are blessed with the notion of having hikmah in your life, this is Allah wanting good for you. My dear brothers and sisters, we are embarking upon a beautiful, inshaAllah, blessed journey with a blessed science from the sciences of Islam, perhaps one of the most noble of all sciences, the science of Tazkiyah, or to purify your soul and your heart. And as Muslims, we are all in dire need of Tazkiyah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. In Surah Al-Shams, Allah, He says, indeed the individual that has purified himself, indeed he has succeeded. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ, past tense, indeed the individual that purified his soul has indeed succeeded. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and the individual that gave in and did not purify himself, indeed he has lost and he was from the losers. So true success is to purify your soul and come closer to Allah. Pure success is fighting your desires and gaining a relationship with your Creator and your Master and your Sustainer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. True success is making it to Jannah, and you make it to Jannah through fighting your desires and purifying your heart and your soul. And the individual that indulges, he loses. He loses in dunya and in akhirah. And the individual that fights off his desires and purifies his heart and his soul, he's successful in dunya and in akhirah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى, also in Surah سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى. Surah Al-A'la, Allah, He says that indeed the individual that has purified himself, he has indeed won and succeeded. So true success is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us success is. And Allah tells us about this notion of success in the Quran multiple times. He says, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. And He says, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ فَازَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. And He says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He teaches us the concept of success in the Quran, and we see that the common denominator of all success is ultimately making it to Jannah, and remaining in the boundaries of the Sharia, and remaining in the boundaries of halal, and staying away from the boundaries of haram. So this science of Tazkiyah is beautiful and blessed, because we are going to learn how to come closer to Allah and how to purify our hearts from their many ailments. And our hearts have many diseases, and we want to purify our hearts from the diseases. The same way, if an individual is feeling a physical sickness, he will go to a doctor. He will set a doctor's appointment, he'll make sure he has insurance, and he'll get to the doctor's office, and he'll see that there is a co-payment. So he'll go and he'll pay the co-payment with happiness, because he cares a lot about taking care of his physical body. His physical health is important to him. He goes to the doctor, and the doctor prescribes him a couple of medications. He's prescribed a couple of medications to take care of his physical sickness. He's prescribed a couple of medications to take care of his physical sickness, and he'll go and he'll take the prescription of the doctor and he'll implement what the doctor tells him, and he won't eat after certain hours, or he'll only eat in certain hours, and he'll take the medicine, etc., to make sure that he is taking care of his physical body so he doesn't perish and die and doesn't demise. The same exact way that you focus on your physical being and your physical body, you should show the utmost importance, utmost importance to your spiritual state, because your spiritual state is far more important than your physical state. Because if you lose your heart, you lose everything. Again, brothers, if you lose your heart, you lose everything, because your heart is your vessel of comprehension, and your heart is your area of comprehension, and your heart is where you receive your khushu' and your closeness to Allah from. The Prophet ﷺ says in a hadith, at the end of a beautiful hadith narrated by An-Nu'man ibn Bashir, ألا إن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. The Prophet, he tells us in a beautiful hadith, interestingly talking about halal and haram. At the end of this hadith, he says that indeed in every body there is a vessel, and if that vessel was to be pure and healthy and upright, then the entire body will be pure and healthy and upright. And if that vessel was to be corrupted and sick, then the entire body would be corrupted and sick. And the Prophet, he said, أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. Indeed, that vessel that we're speaking about is the heart. Telling us and telling the companions, safeguard your heart, protect your heart. Your heart is your area of comprehension, and your heart is where your iman is stored. This iman that we have as Muslims is a gift gifted to us by Allah and His Messenger. Iman is amazing. You enter the fold of iman in Islam with the shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. And you uphold and you remain steadfast on the obligations of Islam and upholding the sunnah, and this keeps your iman strong. You picture your iman like a strong beaming light in your heart that you have to constantly safeguard, and you have to make sure you exert every single means of effort to safeguard your heart and your iman. Heart equals iman, because heart is the vessel that carries your iman in it. Belief is found in the heart and is proclaimed on the tongue. That's why when someone wants to convert to Islam, we tell them, are you ready to convert? And you ask them a number of questions, and they answer straight A. They answer everything correctly. So you say, okay, now you're going to say after me the shahada, ash-shahadatani, the two testimonies of faith. We bear witness and testify that there's no deity worthy of worship except for Allah. And we bear witness and testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His prophet and messenger. And in doing so, you proclaim on your tongue what you believe in your heart. So iman is found in the heart. And the Prophet tells us in the body there's a vessel that's so important that if it's good, everything is good. And that if it's bad, everything is bad. And that is the heart. So your heart is a lockbox, treasure chest. Your heart is like a lockbox, treasure chest that you have to safeguard and protect from pirates. You safeguard and you protect it from anything evil that comes to attack you. Looking at haram is a pirate. Speaking foul is a pirate. Stealing is a pirate. You have to safeguard your treasure chest from all the pirates in the world. That's what it is to uphold iman. And it's not easy, it's difficult. And it's not easy, it's difficult. And that's why the scholars of Islam, from the beginning onset of Islam up until now, they have authored numerous books in regards to Tazkiyah or Tasawwuf. Tazkiyah, purifying your heart, and Tasawwuf, the science of suluk, the science of coming closer to Allah with purifying your heart and staying away from bad things. So now we have a remedy for a physical ailment. The same way a shaykh will give you a remedy or a prescription or a medication for a spiritual ailment. So you'll have the issue of lying or the issue of hasad, jealousy or envy, and the shaykh prescribes you a certain medication to take care of your spiritual ailment. And the Quran and Sunnah are filled with natural forms of tazkiyah, purification. The Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad is all tazkiyah. If someone upholds the Sunnah properly, his whole life was purifying himself and discipline. Islam is based upon discipline. Praying 5 times a day is discipline. Waking up for Fajr is discipline. Making wudu before Salah is discipline. Fasting the month of Ramadan is discipline. Being good to your parents is discipline. Not cheating and not lying and not stealing is discipline. Not looking at haram is discipline. Being an upright individual is discipline. Going to the masjid is discipline. Islam requires discipline in every regard, which is natural forms of tazkiyah. So the Muslim is the one that safeguards his iman by upholding the sharia, by upholding the commands of Allah and staying away from the prohibitions of Allah. So before we delve into this beautiful topic, I would like to take today to speak about the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. Because if anyone wants to benefit from anything, he should know that there's adab, there's etiquettes behind it. Etiquettes, adab. Certain ways that you should sit, and certain ways that you should listen, and certain ways that you should act in a majlis of ilm, in a setting, or in a sitting, or in a gathering of knowledge. And knowledge is amazing, and knowledge is beautiful, and knowledge lifts an individual in status. If you want your status raised, فَعَلَيْكَ بِالْعِلْمِ. If you want an increase in status or a raising of your status, so you should hold on to knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Zumar, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Allah, He says a beautiful ayah in Surah Al-Zumar. He says, say, does the individual that have knowledge, is he the same as the individual that knows nothing? The one that knows, is he the same as the one that does not know? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's telling you something really obvious. He's saying, look, the one that knows nothing, is he like the one that studied and knows something? No, of course not. Of course not. He says, إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, the individual that will take heed from a remembrance, or the individual that will be capable of remembering, is the ulul albab, ashab al-uqul al-nayyira, the individual that has a working brain. Allah, He ends this ayah with, indeed, the individual that will benefit from a remembrance or from knowledge is the individual with a working brain. And He ends many ayahs in the Quran with the same ending. يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤتى الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب. We started off in the introduction talking about wisdom. Allah grants wisdom to whoever He wants, and whomsoever is granted wisdom, he is granted an abundant good. And only the individual with a working brain will take heed from a remembrance. The Quran speaks to the individual with a working brain. And we said that knowledge lifts an individual in status. Allah, He says in Surah Al-Mujadala, يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise those of you who have believed in status. And this is something obvious. The individual of Iman is not the individual without Iman. The individual that prays Salah and makes wudu and wakes up for Fajr is not like the individual that sleeps on Fajr. The individual with the secret treasure in his heart of Iman is not like the one without Iman. So Allah, He says that He'll raise the individual of Iman in status. And then He says, وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ. And also those who have attained knowledge. And He keeps it general and not specific. Who is also raised in status? The individual of knowledge. So now you go to the university and you see a college professor. And the college professor is giving a nice muhadara. He's giving a nice, you go to, what's it called? A class. He's teaching a class. This professor is an atheist. He doesn't believe in God at all. But he studied for years. So he has a PhD and he's Dr. So-and-so. Is he not respected in society? You go speak to a doctor. The doctor is a Christian or a Jew or a non-Muslim. He's a non-Muslim. Is he not respected in society, a doctor? So the individual that studied and attained knowledge, whether it's Islamic knowledge or secular knowledge, whatever it is, Allah, He rifts them in status. Because there's certain ways an individual can gain status in the world. From them is Iman, and from them is knowledge, signifying the importance of knowledge. So now when you come to study, there's a couple of etiquettes we should all be aware of. And I think this is incumbent for us to speak about. This is mandatory for us to speak about. Because you will not be able to increase in knowledge unless you have something called respect. Respect for your teacher, respect for the knowledge, respect for Allah, respect for His messenger, respect for the masjid. You will not be able to increase in knowledge unless you are someone of respect and dignity. And all of this ties into the topic of this class, which is Tazkiyah. All of this that we're speaking about is the essence of Tazkiyah. You not speaking during a class, you sitting respectfully during a class, you respecting your teacher and you respecting your science is all the essence of Tazkiyah. Because Tazkiyah is being respectful. Tazkiyah is respecting yourself and respecting your heart and respecting your Iman and safeguarding yourself. That's the essence of Tazkiyah. So there's some etiquettes of seeking knowledge that I wanted to speak about and expand upon. The first is al-ikhlasu fil qasdi. The first thing that anybody does in the world, or the first thing that any person should understand upon doing anything, is having a sincere intention. Because sincerity is the key to all goodness in the world. And sincerity is that secret that beautifies everything. Sincerity is like salt to a meal, or hot sauce to a meal if you're Bengali or Pakistani, or the pepper, the green pepper. I'm joking. Sincerity is everything. Without sincerity, all the prayers you prayed in your life, they go to waste, they perish. Without sincerity, everything you do goes and withers away in the wind. But with sincerity, everything you did remains. And ما كان لله دام واتصل وما كان لغير الله انقطع وانفصل. There's a famous saying I love to say here, and that's what was done for the sake of Allah. ما كان لله دام واتصل. What was done with sincerity and for the sake of Allah, it remained forever and it was connected. It remained connected, it was strong, and it lasted forever. وَمَا كَانَ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ انْقَطَعَ وَانْفَصَلَ. And what was done with insincerity and not for the sake of Allah, it gets cut off and it withers away. So everything you do in your life, you should renew your intention and remind yourself why you're doing something. But this should not hinder you or come in the way of you and good. Because many times maybe someone is on the way to the masjid and he says, I renew my intention, or why am I going to the masjid? This is a good internal battle to have. An individual should have an internal battle all the time, but it should not hinder him from good. It should not hinder you from doing good. Because if it comes and it hinders you from going to the masjid, or if it hinders you from doing an act of piety, then that's the shaitan overcoming. No. Renew your intention all the time. Remind yourself why you're here. Remind yourself that I went to the masjid for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of getting married. Every day remind yourself. I say this because this is the most common example. And this is a prophetic example. It's not my example. Because young men and young women, on their mind is marriage, because they're good pious people. They want to get married and they want halal. That's okay, that's fine. But sometimes that want comes in between of your pure intention of going to the masjid for the sake of God. And when you do something for the sake of God, Allah, He'll give you what you want on a silver platter, as long as you're sincere. Allah, He'll give you everything you desire on a silver plate without any effort, as long as you're sincere. Don't worry about getting married. Worry about going to the masjid and fixing yourself. Worry about your heart. Worry about your iman, and everything else will come naturally and organically. The same way Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam went to Madian because he was running away from Egypt, and he did a good pious act to help two girls. He did this act with sincerity for the sake of God. He didn't do it to get numbers. He didn't do it to get WhatsApp or Facebook. He didn't do it for haram. He did it with a sincere intention, and due to his sincere intention, Allah blessed him with marriage and a job. Be sincere in everything you do, and don't worry about working on something or doing something for an alternative motive, because they will go and perish. And of course, the famous hadith of the Prophet, the first hadith that's mentioned in Bukhari, the first hadith that's mentioned in Al-Arba'un al-Nawawiyah, the first hadith mentioned in the majority of all hadith books. The scholars, they bring this hadith, even if the chapter does not pertain to this hadith. The first chapter in Bukhari, in Sahih al-Bukhari, authored by Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Bardizbah al-Bukhari. Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn Ismail ibn Ibrahim ibn Ismail al-Bardizbah al-Bukhari. I probably got it wrong, but that's close enough. Imam al-Bukhari, he authored his famous Sahih, his famous compilation of authentic ahadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So maybe many people have the misunderstanding that Bukhari is a book that he wrote on his own. No, he gathered ahadith of the Prophet. I would like to tell you all something. We have strong belief that Bukhari was extremely sincere in his compilation and authoring of his Sahih. We believe he was immensely sincere due to the biographies written about him and explaining how he went about collecting his Sahih and how many years it took from him, and him himself saying that I never put a single hadith inside this compilation except I prayed Salat al-Istikhara before I put it in. So he goes and he exerts effort, and sometimes he travels for 2-3 months in order to receive one single hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He takes off from Samarkand and he goes to Medina, or he takes off from Bukhara and goes to Samarkand, wherever it is. Sometimes he travels. Imagine if there was WhatsApp. He could have just made a phone call. He travels sometimes 2 to 3 months to receive a single hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, to hear it from the guy, from the Shaykh. And after doing all of that, he will not add it to his compilation until he prays Salat al-Istikhara, a sign of sincerity. And what is a sign of acceptance? Because we always ask Allah for sincerity and acceptance. A sign of acceptance is that every single human being on the earth that's a Muslim hears the word Bukhari in every khutbah. In every khutbah, in every class, all Muslims, wherever they're from, 1.9 billion Muslims, they all hear of Bukhari all the time. A sign of acceptance. Why? Because he was sincere. Another sign of sincerity is what Bukhari puts in his Sahih. The first hadith in his book, in the chapter of كيف بدأ الوحي على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. There's the chapter number 1, is how the revelation began on our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How it began, how it started. First hadith is إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. The first hadith he puts here does not pertain to how the revelation began. Because the hadith in regards to how the revelation began is that the Prophet ﷺ used to meditate in Ghar Hira, and Jibreel came to him there and he read to him, اقرأ بِسْمِ رَبِّكَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ. That's the first hadith. But that's not what Bukhari puts in this chapter. He puts a hadith, nothing to do with this chapter. It goes, indeed all actions are based upon their intentions, and every single action has an intention. So whomsoever goes and embarks upon a journey for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, for indeed his journey was for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. And whomsoever embarks upon a journey for the sake of a girl or a woman to marry, or for the sake of dunya, فَهِجْرَتَهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. So his migration is for what he migrated for. It's so simple, but it needs to be said. It's very simple. If your migration from Mecca to Medina, leaving off Dar al-Kufr, leaving off your house and your job, to the abode of Iman in Medina, Dar al-Hijrah, if your migration, if your hijrah was for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, so it was. So it was. So it was for that. And if your migration was for the sake of a woman, so you may marry, or for dunya, so you may receive a part of dunya, then your migration is for what you set off for and what you migrated for. It's common sense. Meaning that your intention in all actions is seen by Allah. If you're sincere, it's accepted and it's for Allah. If you're sincere and if it's for Allah, it's for Allah. And if it's insincere and if it's for any reason other than Allah, then it's for that reason. Whether it's dunya getting a job or whether it's getting a woman for marriage. That's why I said the analogy or the example I'm giving is not a foreign example to us. Every time you go to the masjid, you remind yourself why you go. You say, I go for the sake of Allah. You could also go to see friends, no problem. You can also go for any other reason, but your ultimate goal, going to the masjid, is for the sake of Allah. You could come to the masjid today for the sake of knowledge and increase of knowledge and learning, no problem. But ultimately, you're going for Allah and the pleasure of Allah. And when you have a sincere intention in everything you do, Allah, He blesses that. So the first thing that we mention when it comes to etiquettes of seeking knowledge is al-ikhlasu fil qasdi, to make sure you have a sincere intention in what you're going out to do, what you're setting out to do. And here what we're setting out to do is what? It's to learn and to increase in knowledge. Why am I going to the masjid to study? Am I going to the masjid so I could show off and tell people that I'm a learned individual, or am I going to the masjid so I could remove the ignorance from myself and come closer to Allah? We want to come closer to Allah with our knowledge. I had a dear friend of mine, he was Tunisian. His name is Fahmi Hashama or Hashama. Fahmi Hashama. He was from Tunis, and he was from a place called Mahdiya in Tunis. All of this I learned about when I lived with him. And every single day I used to ride the bus. I lived behind Masjid al-Azhar. I used to take a bus after Salat al-Fajr to go read Quran to a Shaykh that was in a different area, about 45 minutes away from where I was staying. And he used to always be up after Fajr. He would be up reading Quran. He did muraja'ah, he did revision of the Quran 2 times a day. This blessed individual that I lived with, an amazing human. Allah sometimes He takes you places for you to see someone special. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes He takes you places or He moves you in life around to meet someone special that is close to Him. And in this phase of my life, this individual Fahmi was special. And he's someone very close to Allah, and I find him to be an amazing individual. I'll see nothing but good from this individual. He used to fast every Monday and Thursday without any exception. And he used to pray 5 salahs in the masjid without any exception. And he used to read Quran all the time, and he used to seek knowledge day and night. And he used to pray Qiyam al-Layl every single night. Because I lived with him, I know that. So you live with someone, you'll either find out that they don't pray salah because you live with someone and he sleeps on Fajr, and you live with someone and he watches movies all night, or you live with someone and you find he's a secret servant of God and he's close to Allah. This man Fahmi, he used to get sick sometimes, and even when he was sick he would fight and he would fast, and even when he was sick he would go to the masjid 5 times a day no matter what. There's many times, I remember it was a Wednesday or a Monday, I remember many times he would have just gotten his food from the local restaurant. He comes inside and he sits down. Wallahi, I've seen this with my own eyes multiple times. He puts his hand on the food and he goes like this, about to take the first bite, and the iqamah goes off in the masjid. Wallahi, he put the food down, he closes it, and he goes to the masjid. And I used to look at him, I'm like, yo, just eat. The ulama, they say you eat when you're hungry. What are you doing? And he goes, no, I'm not going to leave off salah in the masjid. I'm not going to leave off salah in the masjid. He goes, yalla, get up. Get up. And he would take me to the masjid with him always. He was a blessed individual. Why did I bring him up? Every time I would head out after Salat al-Fajr. We would go to Fajr in the masjid. We'd come back from Fajr in the masjid together, and he would be reading his Quran, revising his Quran that he had just newly memorized, and I would be getting ready to take off to the bus. And I would hear him in his room read the Quran after Fajr, and another time he would read the Quran every day was after Maghrib, between Maghrib and Isha, the 2 times. After Fajr to Shuruq and between Maghrib and Isha. He used to do a juz' in the morning and a juz' at night from his memory. And he was an individual that had a large impact on me just by watching him and how he acted. He had a large impact on me. He was extremely respectful, he was extremely humble, and he was extremely sincere. Extremely sincere. Sincerity, if I could give one word that describes Fahmi, it was that he was sincere. He was sincere. And it beamed from his face. He never liked to talk too much with other people because the talking used to last long, and he used to always excuse himself and go back to the house. And I used to know what he would do. He would revise his studies and revise the Quran. When he read the Quran, he used to do something interesting. I'll never forget this. And inshallah, I learned from him this. He would take his time. He never rushed. He should have somebody. He's rushing because he has a lot to get done. It's okay if you're revising Allah and you're trying to rush, no problem. But like the Quran should be read in a steady manner, and the Quran should be read for you to do tadabbur, for you to take deep meanings out of the Quran and enjoy what you're reading. He used to always read the Quran, and he used to stop all the time, and he used to breathe in and out on strong ayahs, and he would say, "May Allah save us from the Allahumma ajirna min an-nar." If it was the ayah of Jahannam, he used to always say, "Allahumma ajirna min an-nar." Allah, we seek refuge in you from the fire. We don't want nothing to do with the fire. And if it was the ayah of Jannah, he would say, "Allahumma adkhilna al-Jannah." Oh Allah, make us a people of Jannah. He would always stop his recitation, and sometimes he would repeat an ayah a couple of times to emphasize it. And he stood by himself in his room with the lights off. He used to enjoy Quran. He didn't look at his revision as a task that he wants to finish. He did not view his revision as a task to check off, because revision is a task we got to finish. I got to read 20 pages a day. It's a lot. No, he used to enjoy it. Like he was sitting with Allah and he was looking forward to his meeting with Allah every day, because Quran is Allah, because Quran is the speech of Allah. He would be reading his Quran and I'd be getting ready to leave. I'll open the door, it makes a creaking noise, and then he's like, "Shaykh Ismail, where are you going?" Every day I go, "Oh, I'm going to my teacher." He goes, "Why are you going?" I go, "I don't know." I don't know how to answer him. He always puts me on the spot. I go, "I'm going to memorize the Quran, man. What do you mean? I told you 100 times I'm trying to finish the Quran." He goes, "No, why are you going? Why are you going?" I go, "I'm going to memorize the Quran. I'm going to my Shaykh." He goes, No. Jaddad al-niyya, tajdid al-niyya, jaddad al-niyya, always jaddad al-niyya, jaddad niyyatuka. He goes, revise your intention, renew your intention. So one day he bothered me. I was like, every day I used to, yeah, okay. And I walk out, I'm like, what's he talking about, renew my intention? One day, every day he did this, every day I'm going out, it creaks, he stops his reading, he goes, "Shaykh Ismail, where are you going?" "Quran." "Why are you going?" And I would ignore him sometimes. He goes, renew your intention. So one day I went back into the room. I took my sandals off and went back into the room. I go, "What do you mean, renew my intention? What does that mean?" He goes, "Make sure that you're sincere and you're doing this Quran for the sake of Allah." I go, "What is a good intention then? What is it?" He goes, "That you want to remove ignorance from yourself and you want to memorize the Quran to come close to Allah and to live with Allah and to have the book of Allah in your heart and to be raised in the Yawm al-Qiyamah with the Quran and to be of the people of the Quran. Have an intention that you want to be with Allah. Have an intention that you want Allah in your life. Have an intention that you're doing this for the sake of Allah. You're not doing this to memorize the Quran. Memorizing the Quran comes, but you're doing this to be with Allah and to be close to Allah, and you want to remove ignorance from yourself. Renew your intention every day." I go, "Jazakallah khair." So he's a great individual, and he never ever tried to go give a khutbah. I say this all because now I've been giving khutbahs for 4 years now, and I'm nowhere near him in knowledge. Like if he has a pinky toenail, I'm less than his pinky toenail in the knowledge that he gained. Wallahi, he's very serious. He was in Egypt a year before I got there, and he remained in Egypt for 4 years after I left. And I've been on Facebook with him for years, but he never uses Facebook. He doesn't know how to use Facebook, but he has it. It's there just for him to understand when a class is canceled or something. And just 2-3 days ago, this last Friday, I was scrolling through my Facebook newsfeed and I see him upload a picture. He goes, "My first khutbah I ever gave. We ask Allah to grant us sincerity and acceptance in all our actions." I go, "Subhanallah, me, the ignorant slave of Allah, like me, the ignorant person, I'm giving khutbahs for 4 years, and this guy, he's been studying like 6 more years and he never gave a khutbah before." Then it gets you to think, it gets you to sit and ponder, and you think that there's so many sincere people out there in the world that do things simply for the sake of Allah and to seek the pleasure of Allah and Allah alone. And they don't do things for alternative motives. Then you have someone that never studied anything in his life. He can't read a single surah properly, and he's giving khutbahs every week. And he's eager to give a khutbah. He'll tell you, "Brother, I'm available for khutbahs if you need me." Fahmi is studied, and he's overqualified to give a khutbah. He's more than qualified. And then he wallahi, I was so embarrassed for myself when I saw the newsfeed and he put up a picture. He was dressed like this Moroccan thobe, and mashallah, he had a big stick, a big staff, and he goes, "The first khutbah I ever gave, we ask Allah for sincerity and acceptance." I was shocked. I was like, "Subhanallah, man. So he was not dying to give a khutbah. I know what happened without him telling me. I know the story, but without hearing the story, I know it because I know him. He went back to Tunis after receiving a PhD from Al-Azhar, where he studied for years. He's been there for like 15 years now. He left off his family. He's a poor individual from a village in Tunis. His mother once came to visit him in Azhar, and she stayed with him in the apartment he was staying in. And his mother was a pious woman, a very simple woman. And he introduced me to his mother, and I understood how his background. He's a farmer from a village. They probably spent their entire life savings to send him to go study in Egypt. Shaykh Osama of Clifton is actually the individual that introduced me to Fahmi. Shaykh Osama used to live in the same building as Fahmi. When I first went to Egypt, Shaykh Osama introduced me to Fahmi, and then the qadr of Allah had me end up living with Fahmi the next time I went back to Egypt. So I was looking for a place to stay, so I contacted Shaykh Osama. He goes, Fahmi's looking for a flatmate or an apartment mate or apartment guy. He goes, I would love to live with him, because I just remembered how he spoke Arabic. He sounded like the Quran. I was like, yeah, I want to live with him. I want my Arabic to be better. And then I did the greatest thing for myself, because I wanted to be next to someone that only spoke Arabic, so I'm forced to speak Arabic because I speak English. And if I live with brothers from the UK that are studying in Azhar, because there's many brothers from the UK or brothers from Australia or brothers from America, I'll get along with them because we're all Western and we'll talk about nice things and we'll have fun and we'll discuss things all night, but it's no benefit. It's just English, English, English. Because if you know someone speaks English and you're not able to say something specific, you're going to end up speaking English. No matter what rules you put, because the brothers from the UK, they always put like a jar. Anyone that speaks English is going to pay 20 Egyptian pounds, and nothing ever lasts. Nothing ever lasts. Because you wake up at Fajr, you're tired, you're going to speak English. Unless you live with an individual that never heard English in his life. He's from the village of Tunis. Like myself, I used to get stuck and I just stutter, and I'll try to like speak sign language until he understands. And then he'll teach me in Arabic what to say. It was the most beneficial thing I did. But now, as I'm giving you all this class and teaching this dars, I just realized something. Wallahi, I just thought of this right now. And by the way, the story of Fahmi, this just came to my heart. I was not planning on mentioning this at all. But sometimes you speak about sincerity and Allah grants you success to mention someone that is sincere. Wallahi. What was I going to say? What was I saying? Astaghfirullah. Oh, I just realized something right now, and that's the greatest benefit I benefited from Fahmi. That I used to think in the past 10 years was that I benefited Arabic from him because he was only able to speak Arabic. No, that was a great benefit. No, but the greatest benefit I benefited from him was sincerity. Learning what true sincerity is and seeing someone who implements sincerity to the max. A secret slave of Allah, they call it. إن الله يحب العبد التقي الغني الخفي. The famous hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, that he narrates that he heard the Prophet ﷺ say that indeed Allah, He loves the slave that is taqi. He's God conscious. He has Allah in his heart and on his mind. And he's ghani, he's sufficient. And he doesn't expect handouts. He's self-sufficient. He works hard for himself. Or it could mean that he's ghani an-nafs, that he's happy and he's content in his soul. And he loves what Allah has bestowed upon him. He's happy with Allah and what Allah gives him. And then the third one is al-khafi, the secret slave of Allah. When I first read this hadith, I was like, why does the Prophet use the word secret here and not sincere? He could say al-mukhlis. Al-abd al-taqi al-ghani al-mukhlis. He doesn't say mukhlis, the sincere one. He says khafi. He says secret. I realize it now because you have to be secret about your actions to hide yourself from people. And the true sincere individual, he tries everything in his power to not be seen by people. He does not want to be seen. If you're truly sincere, you exert effort to not be seen and to not be known, and Allah does the opposite. He shows you to people. And if you're not sincere, if you're insincere, you do everything to show and to act to people that you are sincere, and Allah shows everyone that you're not sincere. You get embarrassed. So going back to Bukhari, we said that Imam al-Bukhari, he starts off his Sahih book, and the majority of hadith scholars, they start off the hadith books with this famous hadith. Indeed, all actions are based upon intentions, and all intentions and all actions have an intention. Stuff that's so simple, but it has to be said. So whomsoever made a migration for Allah and His Messenger, so it was for Allah and His Messenger, and whomsoever made a migration for a girl to get married to, or for any part of dunya, he'll get what he wanted. He'll get what he wanted. And this hadith was mentioned because there was a famous companion that was known as Muhajir Qais. He was known as the Muhajir, the one who migrated for the sake of a woman. Her name was Qais. Because he loved her. And she migrated, so he wanted to show off to her. So now on Yawm al-Qiyamah, when he's resurrected, is he going to get the reward of the migration, which is an immense act? No, but he's going to get the girl he wanted, he got her to marry. So if you do something for dunya, you'll get the dunya, but then it perishes and it withers away. So the first thing you want to do is be sincere. And I say this for this class, and I say this for everything you do in the world. When you read Quran so you come close to Allah and you live with the words of Allah. And so you remove ignorance from yourself. Anything you do, renew your intention always, but don't let the intention come between you and good. The second thing they mention about having good etiquette in a majlis or in a setting of knowledge is al-i'tidalu fil julusi, is to sit upright and respectful and to put your feet in and to not let your feet come out. This is for the individual that's able to do so. If the individual has a back problem or he's on the heavier side and he has to release his feet so his feet could not give him problems or pain, that's fine. We're speaking, generally speaking, the individual who's able to sit like Zunaid is sitting, and like Salman is sitting, and like Ifat is sitting, and like Abdul Malik is sitting, and like Layth is sitting, and like Imran is sitting, he has to sit this way. And it's best to start from the front and then move your way to the back. Because if an individual wants to learn, he comes to the front out of respect for his teacher, he doesn't sit in the back. So the second thing we want to implement and we want to work on is sitting upright in a setting of knowledge, especially if it's Islamic knowledge, especially if it's in the masjid. It's emphasized much more. And of course, if you have to like let your leg out for a bit to like give yourself comfort, that's fine. But the point is, sit respectfully and respect the class. The more you respect yourself and you respect the way you sit and you show respect, the more you're opened up on. The next one is al-ta'addub ma'al mu'allim. The next one is to have respect in regards to your teacher and to respect your teacher. To have respect in regards to your teacher and to respect your teacher. And this is a very important point that we should all always understand. Respecting your teacher increases you in knowledge, and it increases you in love from the teacher. And I'm not saying this because I'm teaching. No, I'm saying this because of what they mentioned. I don't care about myself, but you should be respectful to your teacher, whether it's me or anybody. And I realized something my own self, studying in Egypt. There were certain students that were extremely respectful to their teachers, and they would follow them like a shadow, in a good way. So the teacher usually has a briefcase, or whatever it is, or the teacher sometimes he coughs in the middle of class and there's no water around him, so there's a student that would jump up and he'd run out and he'd get the Shaykh water. Whether there's water for free or not, he'd run out and get the Shaykh water. Even if it was $10, he'd get him water. He'd run out and get water and come back. That's immense respect. Because what is more important, to be respectful to your teacher or to not miss out on what is being said? No, being respectful overrides knowledge, always. Because you will never gain knowledge if you're not respectful. You will never gain an increase of knowledge ever if you do not have respect. So, being respectful towards your teacher. There was many teachers we studied with, alhamdulillah, and the good respectful students used to always sit up front and in the front of the teacher, and they wouldn't move their head one single inch. They'd always stay focused on the teacher, so they give the teacher their utmost attention, so their teacher sees that they are paying attention. And then when the teacher got up, they would jump and fight over his briefcase to make sure that they hold his briefcase for him. And then he would walk out the masjid and they're following him, and then they'd jump and get his shoes, and they'll put his shoes down for him, and they'll put their finger in the shoe to make sure they help him put his shoe on. And the Shaykh would often laugh and they'd kiss the head of the student. It's a beautiful relationship to be good and respectful to your teacher. And whomsoever has high etiquette and high respect and he's respectful, Allah opens up on him. There's a story that we have to mention when it comes to respect and adab. There's a story that we have to mention that's a beautiful story when it comes to respect and adab. There's a famous scholar by the name of Imam Malik ibn Anas, Imam Dar al-Hijra, the Imam of Dar al-Hijra. What is Dar al-Hijra? We just mentioned it. What is Dar al-Hijra? Yes, Medina al-Munawwara, Medina al-Rasul. Al-Medina was called Yathrib before the Prophet ﷺ migrated there. And after he migrated there, they changed the name to Al-Medina, which is the city. In Arabic, Medina is any city. Medina al-Qahira is the city of Cairo. Medina New York is New York City. Medina in Arabic is city. But Al-Medina is the city of Medina, the city of the Prophet. Interestingly, Mecca is not called Al-Medina, it's called Mecca. The name of Mecca is Mecca and it never changed. But the Prophet is from Mecca. Because the Prophet migrated from Mecca to Medina, and Allah raised the status of Medina due to the Prophet's migration there, and it became his abode. And the Prophet is buried in Medina and not in Mecca. He's buried in the Dar al-Hijra, the abode of migration. So Dar al-Hijra is translated to the abode or the residence of the migrators or the migration, because the Sahaba migrated from Mecca to Medina. So now, after the Prophet ﷺ passed away and went up to the Rafiq al-A'la, there was many Sahaba still there in Medina, teaching in Medina, and they had students, and their students had students. We call the generation of the Prophet, all of those who saw the Prophet and died upon Iman are Sahaba. They are companions, they are followers of the Prophet. Then we have an individual that followed a companion. He's called a Tabi'i. A follower of a companion is called a Tabi'i. Then we have an individual who followed a follower. He's called a Tabi'i or a Tabi'i. These are the Qurun al-Mufaddala. These are the three generations that are increased in rank by Allah. Because in the hadith of the Prophet, that the greatest of all generations is my generation, and then the one that comes after them, and then the one that comes after them. So these three generations are the Qurun al-Mufaddala, and the Fuqaha al-Arba', the four scholars of fiqh and Sunni Islam, are all in these three generations. Imam Abu Hanifa, Nu'man ibn Thabit, ibn Zuta ibn Marzaban, Sahib al-Madhab al-Hanafi, the individual that is the head of the Hanafi Madhab, is the first of the four. He was born in the year 80, and he passed away in the year 150. Then we have Malik ibn Anas, born in the year 93. Then we have Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, born in the year 150. And then we have Ahmad ibn Hanbal, born after al-Shafi'i. They were all born in these three generations. Imam Abu Hanifa was a Tabi'i at the time of the Tabi'is, meaning that he was a follower just because he saw two companions at a young age, so he's still considered a follower. But he was in the generation of the followers, like the other three fuqaha, Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad. So Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa were alive at the same time, and if you read their biographies, they met a couple of times in Hajj, and they had discussions and debates, and they had high respect and regard for each other. And then there's a joke always given about Imam Shafi'i, because he was born in the year 150 after the Hijrah, and Imam Abu Hanifa passed away in the year 150 after the Hijrah. They say that Shafi'i was not allowed to be born until Abu Hanifa passed away. It's the joke the Hanafis always say in the beginning of their books. They go Shafi'i wulida. They say that Shafi'i was born on the day Abu Hanifa passed away, because then he had permission to be born. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't think that's pretty accurate, but it's a joke that they always say that Shafi'i was only allowed to be born after Abu Hanifa passed away, because if Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa were alive at the same time, it'd be problematic. So we're talking about Medina, the beautiful city of the Prophet, and we said it was called Medina after the Prophet migrated there. Before that, it was called Yathrib. So the name was changed to Medina, and then they call it Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, which is the illuminated city of Medina. And is Medina illuminated? We say anybody with Iman and understanding in their head, of course, will say, of course it's illuminated. The Prophet ﷺ is buried there. There's no doubt that it's illuminated. It's illuminated with the light of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet is all light. Allah sent down the Quran to his chest, and the Quran is all light. Revelation is all nur. Quran is all light. Allah is all light. Guidance is all light. The Prophet is all guidance and huda min Allah. The Prophet ﷺ is all light. So Medina is all light with the light of the Prophet ﷺ. So Medina al-Rasul, the Medina of the Rasul, and Al-Madinah al-Munawwara is the name of current day Medina. So now when you look up on Google Medina comes up. We were saying that the Imam of Dar al-Hijrah, or his nickname is Imam Dar al-Hijrah, is the Imam Malik ibn Anas. He was given the nickname the Imam of Dar al-Hijrah because he was the Imam of Medina, the abode of migration, one of the names of Medina. He was a young boy, and when he was a young boy, his mother asked him what he wanted to do when he grew up. He said, I want to be a singer. And he said, even if I'm not good at singing, people will come to see me due to my looks. And his mom didn't want to put him down or offend him, but she said, I don't think that's the case for you. She goes, I think you should go seek knowledge. So she dressed him up in the nicest of garments. And she put a beautiful turban on his head. And she took him to an individual that was famous at the time. And he's still famous till today, of course, but he passed away. His name was Rabi'at al-Ra'i. He was the largest scholar of Medina at the time. He was known as Rabi'at al-Ra'i. His name is Rabi'at ibn Abi Abdurrahman Farrukh. His actual name is Rabi'a ibn Abi Abdurrahman Farrukh. That's his actual name. Known as, to everyone in the books of fiqh and everything, Rabi'at al-Ra'i. Rabi'a, the one who used to exert his opinion. Rabi'a of the opinion, because he used to use his opinion a lot. He was a large scholar of hadith and fiqh at the time of Imam Malik. Imam Malik was a young boy. He wanted to be a singer. His mom said, no, I don't think that's the right thing. I don't think that's the right way you have to go. She says, I don't think people will come to see you due to your looks. And then she said, she dressed him up in the nicest garment. She put the nicest perfumes on him. And she dressed him up in a turban. And she took his hand. This is the pious mother, how she wants good for her son. She takes him to Rabi'at al-Ra'i, and Imam Malik is young. And he studies with Rabi'a for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know the exact timing. The scholars of the biographies, these things are approximated. He studied with him for 2 months, for example. Then he came back to his mom, and his mom is excited. She goes, what did you learn from Rabi'ah? What did you learn from Rabi'ah? So he tells his mom, I learned this and that and this, that, and all these things he's sharing with his mother. And she was so disappointed. She said, go back to Rabi'ah because you did not learn anything. Go back and study with him again because you learned nothing. I don't want you to come talk to me about information. I want you to gain respect and etiquette. So he says, I went back to Rabi'ah and I studied with him for 9 years. And I took no knowledge except etiquette from him. This is just to show emphasis on the importance of etiquette when seeking knowledge. Etiquette is number one. Imam Malik ibn Anas, this individual that we're speaking about, this famous faqih and muhaddith. This famous faqih and muhaddith, he's the author of Al-Muwatta, which is a famous book in hadith. The first book authored in hadith. Based upon what he learned from Rabi'ah, which was what? Etiquette. I think his etiquette went far, because he was known to never ever ever narrate a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ except in a state of wudu, wearing the best of clothing and perfume. That's the only time he would ever narrate a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He would get ready for it. They say when Malik came to yuhaddithana an Rasulillah ﷺ, when he came to give us a hadith of the Prophet, he would go make wudu and wear the nicest of all garments and wear perfume. Then he would start to talk because he's talking about the Prophet ﷺ. So we take this as an understanding that when you go seeking knowledge, which is something so raised in status, you should look appropriate and dress nice and have high respect for yourself and for the knowledge that you're studying. The next thing that they say is al-amalu bil-ilmi, is to act upon that which you have learned. And we have to emphasize this in exclamation mark 100 times, because we always say before we do anything and before we start anything, we say that we ask Allah for ilm nafi'. Allahumma rizqna ilman nafi'an wa amalan salihan mutaqarriban. We always ask Allah for beneficial knowledge. And the brothers that come to Yunus every day, they know that in every single khatir I give, I say, we ask Allah for beneficial knowledge. That is knowledge that increases you in taqwa. That is knowledge that increases you in God consciousness. That is knowledge that increases you and brings you closer to Allah. That is not knowledge that moves you farther away from Allah. And that's knowledge that you implement and act upon. And that's knowledge that you implement and act upon. So, al-amalu bil-ilmi, what's the point of learning something if you're not going to implement it? Because that means that that knowledge that you learn is going to be a proof against you and not for you on the Day of Judgment. Right now we want to gather lawyers, not prosecutors. We want public defendants and lawyers to defend us on Yawm al-Qiyamah, because everything you do in the world will be a lawyer for you and it will defend you, or it will testify against you. Everything you do in the world is either going to be a testimony for you and it will testify for you, or it will testify against you. So the salah that you pray and the Quran that you read, it's either going to testify for you on the Day of Judgment, or it will testify against you based upon your sincerity. So if you go and you learn something and you don't implement it, it will testify against you and not for you on the Day of Judgment. We seek refuge in Allah from knowledge that's not beneficial. And we ask Allah to grant us the ability to act upon what we learn and to practice what we preach. Because the more you practice what you preach, the more Allah opens up on you. And the more you act upon what you learn, the more Allah opens up on you. Because this is all forms of taqwa. The next thing they say is istish'aru muraqabatullahi azza wa jal, is to feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you. And this is the high level of ihsan. And speaking about ihsan, which is perfection in religion, there's a famous hadith that we're going to speak about in the next class that is in regards to all of this. Because when we talk about Tazkiyah, Tazkiyah is taken from the famous hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, which mentions ihsan at the end of the hadith. It starts off with Islam and then Iman and then ihsan. Ihsan is Tazkiyah, perfecting your religion. So knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching over you. And then at-tawadu dakhil al-jalsa is to be humble. Is to be humble in the setting that you're in. To be humble is if you're asked something to answer, and if you're asked to do something to do it, and to sit in a good manner, and to not be arrogant, and to not act like you know everything, and to not answer the phone in a setting. If you have to answer the phone, you exert some intellect and you take your phone and you walk outside and you answer the phone, brother. It's a free country, but don't answer your phone during the setting of knowledge. That's very disrespectful. You're going to disturb everyone, especially in the khutbah. The khutbah is haram for you to look at your phone. Forget answering your phone. This is not a khutbah. So then the next thing is a sabr. And if we could take this and emphasize this 100 million times, having patience is needed. In your pursuit of knowledge, having patience is needed to the maximum degree. Having patience is needed times 100 million, billion, zillion, because everything goes back to being patient. Everything you do in your pursuit of knowledge is patient, because sitting down for 2 hours is patience, Going to the masjid and looking for parking is patience. Reviewing your notes is patience. Paying attention is patience. Everything goes back to patience. And we're going to quickly go over the next two because we want to mention a line of poetry that is very famous. عدم الحياء من السؤال and عدم الانشغال بأمور الدنيا. The last two things that we mentioned is that to not be embarrassed by asking something. There's two individuals that never benefit. The two individuals that will never benefit is the individual who's shy to ask and the individual who's arrogant. Because the individual who's shy to ask, he's shy to ask, so he doesn't ask and it goes and he misses out. And the individual who's arrogant, he knows everything already. He should be the mufti of the world anyway. Why would he have to ask? Because he knows everything. This arrogance is disgusting and it smells really bad. The arrogant person, he thinks he knows everything in every single matter. So don't be arrogant, be humble. And when you're humble, you're able to ask and you're able to let it down. It doesn't matter how old you are, my brother. You could always start. And عدم الانشغال بأمور الدنيا, and is to not be busy with matters of dunya. To not busy yourself with dunya matters when you're coming to seek knowledge. So, we ask Allah for good etiquette, beneficial knowledge, and we ask Allah to make us of those who are humble, so we're able to be opened upon. We'll end the class with this beautiful line of poetry by Imam al-Shafi'i. قال الإمام الشافعي رحمه الله تعالى: أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبئك عن تفصيلها ببيان ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة وصحبة أستاذ وطول زمان. There's a famous line of poetry that Imam al-Shafi'i says, or it's ascribed to Imam al-Shafi'i. He goes, my dear brother, أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة. You'll never ever attain knowledge except with 6 things. If you have these 6 matters, then Allah will open up on you and you will attain knowledge. ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة. You need to be smart. ذكاء, you need to be smart. وحرص, and you have to be eager. You have to have eagerness. You have to be zealous. You have to want it. Because if you want something, you'll attain it. واجتهاد, and you have to put in the effort. Ijtihad is effort. You have to show effort and put in effort. Coming into a car after a long day of work is effort. Walking up the stairs in the masjid is effort. Paying attention is effort. All effort. Being smart, having a strong zeal and passion and want and effort. Then he says, وَبُلْغَةٌ is having the necessary means that is in order to attain that knowledge. Putting in what it takes in terms of financial contribution, whatever it is that you need to attain the knowledge, to go buy the book with the money. Money, the book is $20, you buy the book because you need it. That's bulgha. وَصُحْبَةُ أُسْتَادٍ وَطُولُ زَمَانِ. And he goes, and to accompany your teacher constantly, to be in the presence of your teacher constantly, to be the shadow of your teacher, because you will benefit from your teacher, and your teacher is your most intimate friend because you're learning from him knowledge and you're gaining from him knowledge, and inshallah he's your means of entering Jannah with your knowledge. And then he says, وَطُولُ زَمَانِ. The 6th thing he mentioned is an entire lifetime, because knowledge does not start at a timing and it does not end at a timing. Knowledge is forever and always, and knowledge never ends. And the more you learn and the more you increase in knowledge, the more you know that you know nothing. Any person that studied, he knows nothing and he's small and insignificant. And anybody that didn't study, he thinks he knows everything and he thinks he's big and puffy. Anybody that studied, he knows how ignorant he is, because the Islamic sciences are everlasting and vast. You start studying any subject and you realize that it's never ending. You open a book of fiqh and you study 4 books of fiqh and you realize there's another 18 books of fiqh and there's another 100 books of fiqh. That's only in one madhab. You open hadith and you realize that there's 6 books of hadith that are authentic and there's 120 hadith books altogether. You learn that hadith has 7 different sciences in it. You study Arabic language. You realize Arabic language has 13 sciences in it. Knowledge never ends, it's vast. So anybody that embarked upon knowledge and seeking knowledge, he realizes and he knows very well how little he knows. And that makes him humble. Inshallah, knowledge should grant you humility, not arrogance. If knowledge is making you arrogant, there's a big problem. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on this blessed day, in this blessed place, in this blessed timing between Salat al-Maghrib and Salat al-Isha, to bless us with beneficial knowledge, to increase us in knowledge, to make us people of wisdom, to purify our hearts and our souls, to purify our gazes. We ask Allah to keep us steadfast, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima kathira. Inshallah, we're going to make adhan for Isha, and then we'll pray Isha. The woman could please go downstairs, and the boys could please pack this stuff up and pack the dividers up and place them back downstairs. I'm going to go make wudu and I'll come back. Muhammad, I'm going to make wudu and come back.